What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So who has the advantage in 2026 midterms? So Democrats, Republicans, who do we think is going to win? Usually what I do is I go through these three main factors to find out who is ahead. And that's what we're going to do today. And I'll probably do this at least once a week because these indicators will most likely determine who is going to win, Democrats or Republicans, in 2026. And I will show you right now what the toss-up races look like. So that's what we're going to focus on in this video. But first off, you guys can do me a favor. Please like the video. If you're watching this video and you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. Okay, so first thing I want to do is I want to show you the key factors. Okay. Now, these key factors, different people might have different ways of looking at this, but I think there are three major factors that will determine the 2026 midterm. And the first one is going to be presidential job approval. Second one is going to be the economy and inflation. And then the third one is going to be the candidate landscape or retirements. Who's retiring? Who is going off to different positions? Who's leaving Congress? That's important because when we're focused on who's leaving Congress, we kind of know what the chatter is amongst congressmen because they might tell you, oh, everything is good. So just because they're telling you that everything is good in their home districts, they see the writing on the wall, and that's why some politicians decide to retire because they don't want their last race to be a race where they lost. They want to be able to retire and then move into a different line of work or even run for a different office. So these are the three factors. Now, I want to take a look at each one, and we're going to take a look at what is going on in each of these different categories. So when it comes to the presidential job approval, right now, the president is sitting around 43%. 43% approval. And so the vast majority of the American people disapprove of what President Trump is doing. Now, when we go back and look at history, the impact here is this 43%. Approvals below 45% historically leads to a 20 to 30 point House flip. Okay. So what that's telling us is that right now, President Trump is at 43%. If he stays below this 45%, we're probably going to see a swing between 20 and 30 seats. Why is this important? This is important because when we look at the current map, Republicans have 220 seats. Democrats have 215 seats in the House. So Democrats need 218 to take the majority. And so what they need right now, they need three seats. If they can win 3 seats, they're going to take back the House. So that's why when we're looking at this metric here that says between 20 and 30 House seats, we could see this blue wave if President Trump stays under that 43%. Okay. Now let's look at the economy because the economy and inflation is something else that will determine this midterm election. Because usually in midterm election, it's a referendum on the president. Because if the president's not doing well, if the economy's not doing well, and we're seeing inflation, that usually trickles down to the Congress people. So they will be affected as well in the midterms. So looking at inflation right now, and actually I say right now, but we're talking about in August, we don't have the information yet for September, and we might not get that information next week because we're in a government shutdown. And so we'll have to see if the Bureau of Labor Statistics is able to put out this information. But right now, if we go back to August, like I said, 2.9%, that's what we're looking at. And over here, we'll talk about this. I'll actually talk about it right now because it's important. So when we're looking at CPI, looking at low or moderate risk, that's under 3%. Right now, we are under 3%. And what we're talking about a change, so a flip. So the Republicans now have control of the House. They could lose control of the House. And this is a metric that's also being used. And so if inflation is under 3%, then it's a low to moderate risk of Republicans losing the House. We can also include the Senate, but the Senate is going to be a much harder hurdle for Democrats to overcome. The House is much easier. So when we're looking at the Senate, most likely Republicans will be able to maintain control of the Senate because they have the numbers right now. But when it comes to the House, we're looking at the generic ballot. It's telling us otherwise. It's telling us that Democrats have the advantage. And when we look at some of these different categories, it's also telling us that Democrats have an advantage. Okay, so if we're looking at between 3% and 4.5%, that's a moderate risk. Okay, so moderate risk of Republicans losing in the House. When we look at 4.5% or higher, when it comes to inflation, that's a high or very high risk of Republicans losing control of the House. And so you see, we've gone over two categories already. In both of these categories, Democrats have an advantage. Okay, the 4.3% when it comes to job approval, that's under the 45%. So Democrats have an advantage there. When it comes to inflation, Democrats right now, they have an advantage. It's low to moderate, but they still have an advantage when it comes to inflation. And the anticipation is that inflation is going to go higher. It will probably, most likely in September, it went over that 3%. So we're no longer going to be talking about low to moderate. We're going to be talking about a moderate risk when it comes to inflation. And then one more thing that I didn't mention. So above 50%. So let's say the president's job approval is above 50%. Then losses are usually minimal, or occasionally the president's party gains a few seats. And so if President Trump can get his job approval over 50%, then Republicans will have a slight advantage. They could maintain or retain the House, because when we're looking at historical numbers, it's showing if the president's job approval is over 50%, that party has an opportunity to retain the House. So that's something that's interesting. Now, we're also going to look at some polling, because polling on inflation and the economy is something important, because we want to ask the American people how they feel about inflation, how they feel about the economy, because that really matters. When you look back during the Biden administration, there was a time where inflation was at 9% in June of 2022. And guess what? That really impacted President Biden. That hurt President Biden. And that's probably the reason why President Biden isn't the president right now, because of inflation. We saw inflation skyrocket. And then when you replace Biden with Harris, Harris was a vice president. And so she's still tied to that inflation. And so Democrats had a real steep hill to climb in this situation, just based on inflation. And a lot of people remember that. A lot of people said, look, things are too expensive. They're still saying it now, because guess what? Prices don't really come down very fast, and they're not going to come down right now. They're starting to go back up. But when we saw that inflation tick at 9.1%, people remember that. Even if it's not the president's fault, even if we're looking, we just came out of a pandemic, they're still going to blame the president, and they're also going to punish Congress, so whoever's in power. And during the 2022 midterm election, we saw that shift. Republicans were able to regain power because of inflation, or mainly because of inflation. So looking at the polling and asking the American people how they feel about the economy and inflation is something important. So we're going to take a look at those polls in a second. But let's get back to our chart here. So when it comes to retirements, right now you have 17 retirements total. Okay, so 17 retirements in the House, 3 retirements in the Senate. Now, this can change. You can have more people that decide that they want to retire. But as of right now, as of today, this is what we're looking at. Republicans, we have 11. Democrats, we have 6. This is in the House. When it comes to the Senate, Republicans, we have 2. Democrats, we have 1. Now, this tells a story here. You have 11 Republicans that are choosing to retire in the House. You only have 6 Democrats that are choosing to retire in the House. And now some of these politicians are deciding to run for governor or run for a different seat somewhere else, run for Senate, things like that. But when we're looking at Republicans, almost twice as many Republicans in the House are retiring compared to Democrats. And what this could tell us is that some of these Republicans are looking at their current seat and they're saying, I don't think I'm going to be able to win, so I'm going to retire. And that's just based on what's currently happening, what's currently going on. And so that is a good indicator when we're looking at retirements. Now we look at the Senate, it's the same thing. Senate, we have 2 Republicans and we have 1 Democrat. And so this is another thing. Joni Ernst, she's retiring. Why is she retiring? Why isn't she running for another term? She could have looked at the writing on the wall in Iowa and said, you know what? It's going to be impossible for me to win. So I'm going to bow out. And maybe I'll still have a political life left after this because I can run for something else. And I won't be known as the loser. No one wants to run, lose, and be known as a loser in trying to run in another race. And so if you want a political future, you might want to retire and then say you did it your own way. Then you can go ahead and run for another seat in the future. And then looking at some more information here, when it comes to midterms, it's about how the voters feel about their finances. And so this is very simple. How do people feel about their finances? We could have a good economy, but people don't feel it. They don't feel it. They're still going and paying a lot of money at the grocery store and things like that. So the economy could be booming, but the American people don't feel it. And if they don't feel it, they're going to go to the ballot box and they're going to vote against the party who is in power. Okay, and the last information that we have here, this is open seats. So open seats are twice as likely to flip as an incumbent held district. Okay, so basically, look, if it's an open seat, it's more likely to flip than if an incumbent continues to run. Just like I gave you the example of Senator Ernst, she's decided that she is not going to run. She's going to retire. So now she leaves that seat open. Now Democrats have an advantage. Now we're talking about a red state. We're talking about Iowa. So Republicans do have an advantage in Iowa. However, the fact that it's an open seat gives Democrats a little more of a boost. And so we'll have to see what happens in that race. And we also have to look at what's going on with farmers. You have a lot of farmers in Iowa that are struggling right now. Are they going to hold Republicans responsible for that? Are they going to hold the president responsible for that? And so we'll have to see. It's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. And so these are the three major factors that will determine who is going to win in the midterms, Democrats or Republicans. And right now, Democrats do have the advantage. And in every category, they have the advantage. Because if we're looking at job approval, Democrats have the advantage there. We're looking at inflation. As I stated, 2.9% right now, it's probably going to continue to rise. So if we're looking at it today and we're thinking, okay, what are September numbers going to look like for inflation? It's most likely going to be over 2.9%. And so Democrats have an advantage there. And then we're looking at retirements. We have more Republicans retiring than Democrats currently. Okay, and now to go even a step further, I want to take a look at some of the polling. We're looking at Real Clear Politics here, and we're looking at the president's job approval on the economy. So when we're looking at this, and what Real Clear Politics does is they average the polls. So they'll take all the different polls that are out there and they will average them. And then they'll give you the Real Clear Politics average. And then they'll show you all the different pollsters. So you can see how the average compares to some of the individual pollsters. And so looking at Real Clear Politics, when it comes to the economy, the spread right now is -14. -14, that's disapproval. Okay, so look at disapproval here is at 55.3% disapprove of how the president is handling the economy. And then approval is 41.3%. Now we look at some of the individual pollsters. We'll take a look at like the top four here. Quantus Insight, we have, this was conducted between 10/6 and 10/8, 1,000 registered voters. Approval was at 44. Disapproval was at 53. When we look at Reuters, that was conducted between 10/3 and 10/7. You have 1,154 adults, approval at 34, disapproval at 55, and then the spread there is -21. The spread right above, I didn't say the spread was -9 for the Quantus Insight. And then looking at Morning Consult, that was conducted between 10/3 and 10/5, 2,200 registered voters, approval there 44, disapproval 50. The spread there is -6. And we'll do one more. CBS, this was conducted between 10/1 and 10/3, 2,441 adults, approval at 40, disapproval at 60. The spread there is -20. Okay, now let's look at the president's job approval when it comes to inflation. Looking at Real Clear Politics, the spread right now is -22. Disapprove, 60%. Approval, 38%. And so when we're looking at inflation, you see -22, that's the spread. And so you see the vast majority of people who were polled, they're saying, look, inflation is not under control. It's not going down. It's continuing to rise. Now, why is inflation important? Inflation is important because people feel it every day. And so they're going to remember this feeling when they go and they vote. They're going to say, look, things aren't better than they were a year ago. And so I'm going to vote whoever's in power right now. I'm going to vote against them because nothing has changed. And if it gets even worse, then they're really going to come out and vote. And you might even have some people that were going to sit on the sidelines during the midterm election. They might come out to vote just to say, look, you promised us things, you didn't come through. We're going to vote against your party. And so that's what we could see. And so when we're looking at inflation, it's very important because it's something that we feel every day. When we talk about the economy, yes, people could say, well, yeah, the economy's good or the economy's bad. They might not feel it right away. But when it comes to inflation, you feel that every day. Every time you go to the grocery store, you're going to feel inflation. Every time you go to buy anything, you're going to feel inflation. You're going to know that your purchasing power is less than it was a year ago. And that's really important. Okay, let's look at some of the individual pollsters here. So we have CBS. This was conducted between 10/1 and 10/3, 2,441 adults. and approval 35, disapproval 65. The spread there is minus 30. We have Harvard-Harris poll conducted between 10-1 and 10-2. We have 2,413 registered voters. Approval there 40, disapproval 60. The spread there is minus 20. And looking at the Economist YouGov conducted between 9/26, 9/29, 1,518 registered voters. Approval there 37, disapproval 59. The spread there is minus 22. And then we'll do one more. Marquette. This is conducted between 9/15 and 9/24. You have 1,043 adults. Approval there 29, disapproval 71. The spread there is minus 42. So just look at this. Double digits. I mean, we have minus 30, minus 20, minus 22, minus 42. And then we have one. I guess we can go down and see this one here because this is an outlier. RMG Research conducted between 8/18 and 8/19. 1,000 registered voters. Approval there 46, disapproval 48. The spread there is minus 2. But you look at all the other pollsters, and they're all in the double digits, and we're talking minus 11, minus 26, minus 23. So you see that the vast majority of people that were polled, they don't like where the country's going when it comes to inflation. The promises that were made have not been kept. And so I want to know what you guys think. What is your experience when it comes to inflation? What do you guys think overall as far as Democrats? You think Democrats will be able to take back at least the House in 2026? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye. So that's all we have for this video. Make sure if you guys want to send me an email, you can do that, david@thetecshow.com. Like the video, subscribe for more, and check out these videos over here for some more great content. Talk to you later. Bye.